In this video, I just want to give you a few tips. I worked as an IELTS examiner a few years ago, and these are some things that I thought about at the time and I've thought about since that are useful for you if you're taking the IELTS exam. First of all, make sure you give yourself some thinking time. What I mean by that is when the IELTS examiner asks the question, give yourself time to think about it. You do this in your own language when somebody asks a question. For example, you repeat the question. So if the question was, what games did you like as a child? You would say to yourself, what games did I like as a child? Well, let me think. And this gives you a little bit of time to think. And if you get used to doing this while you're practicing, it will become something you naturally do in the speaking test. And it sounds more natural when you do this because you would do it in your own language rather than just go straight into the answer. Snooker. I played snooker when I was a child. So try to give yourself some thinking time before you answer the question. Another thing you can do is if you don't understand the question, then ask. This is particularly in part 3. I wouldn't recommend doing it in parts 1 or 2, but in part 3 you can ask for an explanation or repetition. It's a speaking test. It's about communication. So if you don't understand the question, ask the examiner to repeat it or explain it. So you could say, I didn't quite catch that. Would you mind repeating it, please? That's for when you think you haven't heard it properly, and asking them to repeat it for a second time will help you to understand what they're asking for. What do you mean by? So if they've used a word or an expression that you're not sure of, you can ask for clarification. Could you clarify what something means? So again, you're asking for clarification. I'm not entirely sure what you mean. Could you explain? This is much better than just answering a question that you don't really understand, or just saying something like, I don't know. And it also shows that you can use complex language, because in all of these questions, things like, I didn't quite catch that. It's very high level, it's idiomatic, and it's saying, I didn't quite hear it. Now, in the IELTS speaking test, you are giving opinions a lot of the time, and there is a tendency for IELTS candidates to say, I think, a lot. Instead of that, you could use, I guess, I suppose, I reckon, I imagine, I feel, as far as I'm concerned. So try to get used to using different phrases instead of I think, because it gets very repetitive when all you hear is I think, I think, I think. Another thing that the IELTS exam is full of is saying whether you like or you dislike something. Try to avoid using like, don't like, or dislike. There are loads of different ways that you can express your likes and dislikes. So for example, I'm a massive fan of. I'm not a big fan of. I'm really into. I'm not really into. I'm crazy about. I'm not that crazy about. I'm addicted to. Or I'm not that bothered about. These are really useful phrases, and if you don't already use them, I recommend pausing the video and writing these down and trying to get used to saying, you know, I'm not that into newspapers. I'm not that keen on reading about celebrities. I'm addicted to gadgets. I'm crazy about modern dance, for example. So practice using these to talk about things you like and dislike. And finally, I think it's really important to relax and smile. Now, I know that's incredibly difficult to do because it's your IELTS test and you probably need a certain grade and you need to do well in it. But IELTS examiners are human beings and they want you to do well. They're not sitting there hoping you do really badly. Try and impress them in the first 60 seconds and they'll want to give you a high grade. It's a bit like a job interview. We form judgments very quickly within the first 60 seconds, 2 minutes. So if you get the examiner on your side by being smiley, happy, relaxed, then you're more likely to get them to want to give you a good grade, and they'll be focusing on everything good that you do rather than focusing on all your mistakes that you might be making. Good luck with your IELTS test if you're taking it shortly, and see if you can remember to use these tips and follow the advice that I've given you today. Thanks for watching.